Hi everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. My name is Anna. Today I have a new story for you. The words are simple, and this story is good for beginners. The story is called Learning to Dance. It's about a shy man who decides to try something completely new, and finds much more than he expected. Let's start. Henry Carter was 41 years old. He worked as an accountant at a small company. He lived alone in a quiet apartment. A year earlier, Henry's marriage had ended. His wife moved to another city, and Henry stayed in their old apartment, mostly by himself, going to work and coming home again, day after day. Henry's friends worried about him a little. He didn't go out much anymore. He didn't see people outside of work. Most evenings, he ate dinner alone and watched television until he fell asleep on the sofa. His weekends looked much the same: quiet trips to the grocery store, cleaning his apartment, sometimes calling his sister on the phone, but rarely leaving his apartment for anything social. One day, Henry's coworker, a friendly woman named Patricia, invited him to a work party. Henry didn't really want to go, but Patricia insisted, saying it would be good for him to get out of the house. Henry agreed reluctantly, mostly because he couldn't think of a good enough excuse to say no. At the party, held at a colleague's large backyard, there was music, food, and many people from the office talking and laughing together. Henry stood near the drinks table for most of the evening, nursing a single glass of juice, watching everyone else socialize easily. When music started playing and some people started dancing, Henry stood at the edge of the room, watching everyone else, feeling completely out of place. He didn't know how to dance at all. He felt embarrassed just standing there. "Why don't you dance?" Patricia asked him, noticing him standing alone. "I don't know how," Henry admitted, feeling his face turn red. "I've never learned." "There are classes for that, you know," Patricia said, smiling. "My sister takes dance classes downtown. She loves it. Maybe you should try it." Henry laughed a little, thinking this was a strange suggestion. But later that night, lying in bed, unable to sleep, he thought about it again. He thought about how lonely his apartment felt. He thought about how long it had been since he tried something new, something different from his usual quiet routine. The next morning, feeling a little bit brave, Henry looked online for dance classes near his apartment. He found a small dance studio offering beginner classes every Thursday evening, no partner needed, and no experience required. Before he could change his mind, he signed up for the 6-week beginner course. On his first Thursday evening, Henry stood outside the dance studio, feeling extremely nervous. He had changed his shirt twice before leaving his apartment, unsure what exactly one wore to a dance class, and he sat in his parked car for nearly 10 minutes before finally gathering the courage to actually go inside. He almost turned around and went home. But he remembered his empty apartment, and he forced himself to walk inside. Inside, about 15 people stood around the room, some talking quietly, some stretching, all waiting for the class to begin. Henry felt like everyone else probably knew what they were doing, and he was the only person there who felt completely lost. He noticed a mix of ages in the room, from a young couple who looked barely in their 20s, to an older man standing confidently near the front, clearly not a beginner despite attending the same class. A woman with short dark hair and a bright smile walked to the front of the room. "Welcome, everyone. I'm Rosa, your instructor. Don't worry if this is your first time. Everyone in this room started exactly where you are right now. Rosa began the class with simple steps, showing everyone the basic rhythm of a simple dance called the foxtrot. She demonstrated slowly at first, walking through the pattern alone before asking everyone to try following along without a partner, simply learning the footwork pattern on their own before attempting it together with someone else. Henry watched carefully, trying to remember the pattern: slow, slow, quick, quick. His feet felt clumsy and awkward, moving in the wrong direction more than once, and he glanced around nervously to see if anyone else looked as confused as he felt. To his slight relief, several other beginners seemed equally uncertain, one man near the front accidentally moving in a complete circle instead of the straight line Rosa had demonstrated. "Don't worry about mistakes," Rosa said cheerfully, walking around the room, gently correcting a few students' footwork with patient, encouraging comments. "Everyone makes mistakes. That's exactly how you learn." During the class, everyone needed to find a partner and practice together. Henry felt nervous about this part especially, watching as pairs quickly formed around him, feeling a small flash of panic at the thought of being the person left standing alone. A woman near him, maybe around his own age, smiled kindly and offered her hand. "Want to practice together?" she asked. "I'm Linda. This is my first time too." Henry felt relieved hearing this. "I'm Henry," he said. "And yes, please. I definitely need the practice." Henry and Linda practiced the simple steps together, both of them stepping on each other's feet more than once, laughing about their mistakes instead of feeling embarrassed. By the end of the first class, Henry still felt awkward and unsure, but he also felt something unexpected. He had genuinely enjoyed himself, more than he had enjoyed anything in a very long time. "Same time next week?" Linda asked as the class ended. "Definitely," Henry said, surprising himself with how quickly he answered. Over the following weeks, Henry attended every single class. He practiced simple steps at home too, sometimes counting quietly to himself in his kitchen while waiting for water to boil, feeling a little silly but also genuinely motivated. Slowly, his feet stopped feeling so clumsy. He started remembering the patterns more naturally, without needing to think so hard about every single step. Linda became a regular dance partner during class, and the two of them developed an easy, comfortable friendship. During breaks, they talked about their lives. Linda worked as a nurse, and she had started dance classes after her own children left home for college, feeling similarly lonely in her suddenly quiet house. "I understand exactly how you felt at that party," Linda told him one evening. "Standing there, watching everyone else, feeling like you don't belong. That's exactly why I finally signed up for this class too." They began arriving a little early each week, sitting together on a bench outside the studio, chatting about their weeks before class officially started. Henry found himself genuinely looking forward to these small conversations, something simple and easy that felt considerably different from the quiet isolation of his usual weekly routine. Linda told him stories about her patients at the hospital, and Henry, in turn, found himself sharing small details about his own life that he hadn't discussed with anyone in months, small complaints about work, memories of trips he used to take with his ex-wife, hopes he had quietly for his own future. During the third week, the class learned a new, slightly more difficult dance called the waltz. Henry struggled considerably more with this particular dance, the timing feeling completely different and confusing compared to the foxtrot he had just started feeling comfortable with. The counting pattern for the waltz used 3 beats instead of the 4 he had grown accustomed to, and his feet kept wanting to return to the familiar rhythm instead of learning something new. "I don't think my feet understand this rhythm at all," Henry admitted to Rosa, feeling frustrated after stepping on Linda's foot for the 3rd time that evening, apologizing repeatedly while Linda simply laughed and reassured him it was completely fine. Rosa laughed kindly. "The waltz confuses almost everyone at first," she reassured him. "It's a different counting pattern completely. Give your feet more time. They'll understand eventually, I promise." Henry practiced extra hard that week, watching online videos at home, counting the unfamiliar rhythm repeatedly until it started feeling slightly more natural. He pushed his kitchen table against the wall one evening, giving himself just enough space to practice the basic steps alone, counting quietly under his breath, feeling somewhat silly but genuinely determined not to embarrass himself during the following class. By the following class, though still not perfect, he managed to complete an entire waltz with Linda without any major mistakes. "You've really improved," Linda told him, genuinely impressed. "Last week you looked completely lost during this dance." "I practiced a lot," Henry admitted, feeling proud of himself. "I don't think I've practiced anything this much since I was in school." By the 4th week, Henry noticed something interesting. He had started genuinely looking forward to Thursday evenings, something that hadn't happened with any part of his week in a very long time. His apartment still felt quiet most evenings, but now, at least one evening each week, he had something exciting to anticipate. During this same week, Henry met another regular student named Robert, a friendly older man who had been taking dance classes for almost 2 years, far more experienced than most of the beginners in the room. Robert often stayed after class, offering friendly tips to newer students, moving through the room with an easy confidence Henry secretly hoped to eventually develop himself. Robert had started dancing after his own wife passed away, mentioning once, quietly, that the classes had helped him through an especially difficult period of loneliness, giving him somewhere to go and something to focus on during evenings that otherwise felt unbearably empty. "You're picking this up faster than most beginners," Robert told Henry one evening. "Keep coming, and in a year, you won't even remember feeling nervous about any of this." Henry appreciated Robert's encouragement considerably, finding it motivating to hear from someone who had once been exactly where Henry currently found himself, nervous and uncertain about his own abilities. He found himself thinking of Robert as a kind of quiet example of where his own journey might eventually lead, someone who had walked through genuine grief and loneliness and found his way towards something resembling genuine happiness again. During the 5th week, Rosa announced something that made Henry feel nervous all over again. The dance studio was hosting a small social event the following month, an informal evening where students from different classes could practice dancing together in a relaxed, low-pressure setting, with light music and refreshments. "It's not a performance," Rosa reassured the class, noticing several nervous faces around the room. "Just a fun evening to practice what you've learned with different partners, in a friendly atmosphere." Henry felt genuinely torn about this suggestion. Part of him wanted to attend, curious about testing his new skills. Another part of him worried about dancing with unfamiliar partners, people he hadn't practiced with regularly like Linda. "I think you should come," Linda told him during a break. I'm definitely going. It'll be much less scary with a friendly face already there. Encouraged by Linda's own decision to attend, Henry decided to go too, though his nervousness about the event lingered throughout the following weeks of practice. During the sixth and final class of the beginner course, Rosa reviewed everything the group had learned throughout the 6 weeks, allowing everyone to practice both the foxtrot and the waltz one final time before officially completing the beginner level. She played a mix of different songs, letting students rotate between partners one last time before the course officially ended. "You've all improved remarkably," Rosa told the class warmly. "I remember your first evening here, so many nervous, uncertain faces. Look at you all now." Henry felt genuinely proud reflecting on his own progress. 6 weeks earlier, he had stood outside this exact building, seriously considering turning around and going home. Now, he moved through familiar dance steps with genuine confidence, his feet finally understanding rhythms that had once felt completely foreign. He looked around the room at his fellow classmates, remembering their own nervous first attempts, now all moving with noticeably more ease and confidence than during that first awkward evening together. Rosa handed out small certificates at the end of class, a simple gesture that nonetheless made Henry feel a genuine sense of accomplishment, something he hadn't expected to feel over something as ordinary as finishing a beginner dance course. The night of the social event finally arrived. Henry dressed carefully, feeling nervous excitement rather than pure anxiety this time, a noticeable change from how he had felt walking into his very first class weeks earlier. He tried on 3 different shirts before settling on one, laughing quietly at himself for caring so much about something as simple as a casual dance social. The dance studio looked different for the event, softer lighting, small tables with snacks and drinks arranged along one wall, gentle music already playing as people slowly arrived. Colorful paper decorations hung from the ceiling, and Rosa had set up a small table with punch and cookies near the entrance. Henry spotted Linda near the entrance and felt immediate relief seeing a familiar, friendly face. "You made it," Linda said, smiling warmly, wearing a nice dress instead of her usual practice clothes. "Ready for this?" "Not really," Henry admitted, laughing nervously. "But I'm here anyway." Throughout the evening, Henry danced with several different partners, some experienced, some beginners like himself, everyone generally kind and patient with each other's occasional mistakes. He danced with a shy woman named Grace, who admitted this was only her 3rd class ever, and with a confident older woman named Barbara, who patiently guided him through a slightly unfamiliar variation of the foxtrot he hadn't quite mastered yet. He danced twice with Linda, their comfortable familiarity making those particular dances feel considerably easier than dancing with unfamiliar partners. Near the end of the evening, Robert approached Henry, genuinely impressed. "You've come a long way in just 6 weeks," he said. "Most beginners look considerably more nervous than you did tonight." "I definitely felt nervous," Henry admitted. "But somehow, it felt manageable tonight, not overwhelming like that first work party months ago." As the evening wound down, Henry found himself talking easily with several new acquaintances from the class, people he had barely spoken with beyond simple hellos during regular Thursday sessions. The relaxed, social atmosphere of the event created space for genuine conversation beyond just counting dance steps together. Walking home that night, Henry felt something he hadn't experienced in a very long time, genuine contentment, a feeling that his life, once feeling quiet and somewhat empty, had gradually filled with small, meaningful connections he hadn't anticipated finding through something as simple as dance lessons. In the months following the beginner course, Henry continued attending intermediate dance classes at the same studio, his skills and competence continuing to develop steadily. He remained close friends with Linda, the two of them regularly attending social dance events together, along with Robert, who had become something of a mentor figure within their growing friend group. The three of them started meeting occasionally for coffee before class too, their friendship extending naturally beyond the dance floor itself. Henry also started attending occasional dance socials at other studios around the city, something Robert introduced him to, gradually building a wider circle of acquaintances who shared this same unexpected passion. His weekends, once entirely quiet and uneventful, now sometimes included Saturday afternoon practice sessions or evening social dances, small but meaningful changes to a life that had once felt considerably emptier. Henry's co-worker Patricia, noticing his obvious change in mood and energy over recent months, finally asked him directly what had changed, catching him one afternoon by the office coffee machine, where Henry was humming quietly to himself, something he never used to do. "I actually took your advice," Henry admitted, smiling. "About the dance classes. Best decision I've made in years, honestly." Patricia looked genuinely delighted hearing this, nearly spilling her coffee in surprise. "Wait, really? I said that as a joke, mostly. I had no idea you'd actually go." "Neither did I," Henry said, laughing. "But I did, and it completely changed things for me." "I knew that would be good for you," she said. "You seem like a completely different person lately, Henry." "Happier." "I feel like a completely different person," Henry agreed. "I never expected something as simple as learning to dance could change so much." A year after his first nervous Thursday evening, Henry found himself helping Rosa occasionally with newer beginner classes, offering encouragement to nervous new students exactly as Robert had once offered him. He particularly remembered a nervous young man named David, who reminded Henry vividly of his own uncertain first evening, standing awkwardly near the entrance, clearly considering leaving before the class even began. "I almost turned around and went home on my first night too," Henry told David, noticing his obvious hesitation. "Best decision I ever made, staying anyway." David looked at him skeptically. "You seem so comfortable here now. Was it really that hard for you at first?" "Genuinely terrifying," Henry admitted, laughing at the memory. "I stepped on my partner's feet constantly during my very first class." "Give yourself some patience. It gets easier faster than you'd expect. Everyone feels exactly like you're feeling right now during their first class," Henry often told anxious newcomers, remembering vividly his own uncertain beginning. "Give yourself time. Your feet will eventually understand, I promise." Reflecting occasionally on his remarkable journey, Henry often thought back to that difficult period after his marriage ended, remembering how empty and quiet his life had felt during those lonely months, evenings that blurred together with barely any distinction between one day and the next. He felt genuinely grateful for Patricia's simple suggestion that evening, and for his own small, brave decision to actually walk into that dance studio despite his considerable nervousness. He thought, too, about all the small moments along the way that had mattered more than he initially realized: Linda's kind offer of partnership during that very first class, Robert's quiet encouragement, Rosa's patient teaching, and the simple, steady rhythm of showing up week after week even when progress felt slow. Sometimes, he realized, meaningful change starts with something as simple as learning to move your feet to unfamiliar music, surrounded by other people equally willing to feel a little awkward together. And that's the end of today's story, Learning to Dance. I hope you enjoyed it. I think this story shows something nice. Sometimes, trying something completely new, even when we feel nervous and out of place, can lead us toward genuine friendship and happiness we didn't expect to find. Before you go, think about this. Is there something new you've wanted to try, but felt too nervous or embarrassed to attempt? Thank you so much for listening today. This has been Anna, and this is the podcast. See you in the next episode. Take care, and keep practicing your English.